Hello and welcome back to the third episode. I think it's the third. We had some discussion about this of the Three Devils podcast. The first one officially where I'm actually here, not just sending little videos of me without discussion. And it's good to see these guys. It's so official now that Semeex has already got a shirt, which surprised us, but there you have it. So we're all here. This is Semeex Football and Andy from Footy with an Edge. How you guys doing today? How you doing, Semeex?
I'm doing good, man. I'm looking forward to this discussion. What's up, Andy?
Yes.
Doing well, man. Excited to be here, and after the scheduling stuff, the technical stuff, we're finally here, man. Because you guys asked for it, and we love to be here for you. Super excited for this conversation. James, kick us off.
For sure. Well, it's going to be a big one, and it's going to be a very transfer-focused episode, which makes sense why we put in it on my channel for the first time, given the context of everything. And we're going to start with a big player, an interesting player to discuss, which is Antoine Semenyo. And to lead us off here, to give you the idea of just where things are at with this in United, he's a player where, of course, United have been very interested in. They nearly bought him last summer. They were pretty close to even getting a deal prior to Bryan Mbeumo. There was a point where you might have seen, if things had gone a little different, we might have seen Cunha, Semenyo, and Mbeumo as a front three at some point. We might have seen Cunha, Šeško, Semenyo as a front three. Who knows? There could have been a lot of different iterations there, but United were close. Didn't end up getting a deal for him done. Price was high. But essentially, of course, it's been revealed he's got this crazy release clause. He's got a release clause in January, and it gets even lower in summer, which essentially incentivizes him and the club to maybe get a little bit more money in January than in summer. So United, very interested, love the player, but as we all know, maybe it's not the exact priority for United right now. What do you guys think of Semenyo? How do you think he would affect the team? What do you think, Andy? Why don't you start with that?
Yeah, for me, Semenyo is very good physically, right? Someone who's not like a Raheem Sterling type dribbler, but more of like a Ronaldo type dribbler, right? Very physical with it. Adds a lot of physicality. I think we've talked about him before, I'm sure on all three of our channels, where he adds that versatility in terms of playing all five positions that we want to play, right? Because let's be honest, the wing backs are actually wingers, and the 10s are actually midfielders, right? So and the striker can be different things at different times. For me, Semenyo, also off the pitch, seems like a very good character, right? Very humble. He recently got engaged as well, so clean living professional, right there for check mark for Jason Wilcox. And for me, I think this is someone that really excites me, and the AFCON thing is not really a problem because Kana's not in the AFCON this year. And for people that don't realize it yet, the next AFCON is actually going to be in the summer. In fact, this one was supposed to be in the summer, but FIFA decided to do Club World Cup. So that's why it got moved to the January. So for the next kind of 4 years, we're looking at somebody that, doesn't go away for AFCON or anything like that. And I really like Semenyo. I think he could be a good addition to the team. Semeex, your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, like just to break down the players' qualities is one thing I always notice with Semenyo is he has no problem tracking back, no matter what position he plays in. So I do think that he could fit in as a wing back, but I also think he could be an amazing 10 up front. And also take up the striker role, and he can have it could be like a really fluid 3-man rotational front three. If you really bring in Semenyo, Cunha, and Mbeumo, you can really see them rotating and taking up each other's spots, which makes it really confusing for opposing center backs to figure out, wait, who's playing centrally right now? And you can start dragging center backs out of position with clever runs and rotations. So I love it. I love that idea. And I also, just to say a little bit like what Andy was saying, off the pitch stuff, anytime I've heard Semenyo talk, he's just got the right mentality. He is a winner. You can tell, like from conversations he's had with even other social media personalities in the preseason, when he told some of our guys, our content creators, that he was like, oh, I'm going in to win this game. You know what I mean? Against us in a preseason game. That's exactly the kind of mentality I would want. So yeah, I would be so happy if we would make that kind of move. But James, I don't know, man. Is it, how How likely do you rate us going for this or not?
Can I just add quickly before James goes as well? Amorim recently in a press conference said he wants someone like Ahmad on the left-hand side, right? As the wing back, and Semenyo, because he wants someone who's right-footed to cut inside. Because remember, the Premier League has been built on inside forwards with the opposite foot as wingers for the last like 5-10 years, and he essentially sees our wing backs as those inside forwards. So that's why Semenyo at wing back works really well. But James, please go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's a tough one because we know there are these huge priorities when you talk about the midfield, even the center back situation. If you were to classify Semenyo, I mean, I've had tons of debates with people about someone like Semenyo being a wingback. People really have a problem with the idea of playing players like him at wingback, but they shouldn't. They shouldn't, because nobody would have said with Ahmad before Amorim arrived, oh, that's a wingback, small 5'7" player, with his technical qualities. Nobody would have said that. But look at how much better as a team we are with Ahmad at wingback, and how good it's been for his productivity as well. He actually is more productive out wide as a wingback than he is as a 10 closer to goal. So I think Semenyo could fall into that bracket, but as you said earlier on, 5-position player too can cover everything. I think what the debate comes down to within the club, which is an ongoing discussion here, and why I haven't lost that hope as of yet, is that, is it our most needed position today? No, it's not the view of the club that it is. But if you're thinking about a long-term building project for United, which they are, and which they've been planning with, and which they've been doing, you're looking and saying, well, what about next season? We plan to be back in Europe. We plan to be going back to compete for titles. Can we pass up an opportunity to try for a Premier League proven player that can cover all of these positions, where, as we've seen the last couple of games, as soon as you lose one or two guys, it's kind of thin. And when we're starting to rotate and have to play 2 a week, it's going to be even thinner. It's going to look really, really light at that point in time. So
We're
that's
already
the debate
looking
going
light
on within
with the
club.
2 games, right?
Yeah, it's light. Everton and West Ham, Everton and God, what did we win? Palace was light up front. We were happy to see it, but we couldn't even make attacking subs the whole game. We couldn't make attacking subs. We had nobody. Shea Lacey was the only attacking player on the bench against Palace. That's not how it could be, especially when we're back in Europe. So that debate's ongoing, and just with knowing how these guys operate, I still hold out a little bit of hope that they'll make a move for him in January and say, all right, you know what? We can't pass up this opportunity, especially when we see Ahmad and Mbeumo leave on the 21st. We're only getting 2 more games with them or something like that, maybe 3. It's going to look real light, and they're going to say, we got to do something. We got to do something. But we'll need him next year. We can't be the only team in football allergic to depth, because that's not how you win titles and trophies. So I think there's a chance, just in how they think. I do think there's a chance they'll just say, we got to try. Whether we get him or not, I think us, City, Liverpool, maybe even Spurs will all potentially trigger that release clause or approach about triggering it. Who's he choose? Where does he go? That's an unknown.
Okay, so if you're kind of leaning towards the club might not think of him as a priority, then what is the priority and where are we leaning then? What is the thing we're focusing on for January?
Yeah, well, it's the midfield, right? It's the midfield is what they want. And it, just touching on that, part of the reason I think they could end up doing it is because, as we discussed, that we'll get into a little bit more, they probably can't get the big guys, right? So we'll talk about some other names here, because they probably can't get the big guys. Anderson, Morton, Baleba, we've covered that. We know that. Everybody knows those are the big targets. Those are the ones they want 1 or 2 of, and none of them are possible in January. It's already been discussed. It's already been checked out. It's just not happening. They're fighting relegation and Forest, and they're doing different things, and some are even in Europe, like Palace, and they're just not going to sell their players.
Forest is in Europe as well. They're fighting relegation and they're in Europe. Yeah.
That's crazy times. We've been there right now, but Glasner's threatening to leave already because they lost players. Like, they're not selling, these guys during this January window. So that brings us to what kind of opportunities. And one of the ones that has been hanging around United for years is Ederson, the Atalanta midfielder Ederson, a Brazilian midfielder there. we've had an interest in him for, I don't know, 3 seasons in a row now that United have been linked to him, and they have had a genuine interest there. His price was 70, 80 million in the past, something really, really high. Big risk, for a player at in Serie A that, you wondered how's he fit, where's he play, things like that. Now his agent has gone on record straight up outright saying 35 million euros potentially in January could cash in because that contract's running down. He nearly left last summer, but didn't take the move to Saudi that was on the table and wants to stay in Europe. So this is one we can't lose sight of because it will not go away, this link, and the price is potentially very, very attractive. Interesting player. Semeex, you know much about Ederson? What do you think of him as a player? What does he bring to the table? Where would he play?
So the things that I see about Ederson is like, I think Andy did a show also and said on his show that Ederson was more of an 8 than a 6 or a box-to-box kind of player. And it's true. And everything I've seen from Ederson tells me that he's a little less of a duel winner than, say, Joao Gomez would be. Joao Gomez is going to win a lot more duels for you. So is Elliot Anderson, to be honest with you. I think Ederson doesn't win that many duels. Casemiro, actually, from last I checked, has a higher duel win percentage than Ederson does. So that part makes me nervous. And the way I think of Ederson is somebody who definitely would take us up a notch. He would definitely improve us. He gives us some legs we desperately need. But he's also someone who, if you watch the way Adam Wharton plays, he kind of walks around a lot, but is positionally aware. Ederson reminds me a little bit of that there's a lot of walking around, but then he knows when to press up front. He's like a better defender on the opponent's half of the field than he is on our own half of the field. Again, like, it just makes me go, is that really the kind of player we are looking for? Because it kind of takes, instead of Casemiro's role, it's kind of like playing a half Casemiro, half Bruno role, if that makes sense, in our team, in a 2-man system. But again, I also do think that he is an upgrade, and for the price of 35 million, as long as they're going into it thinking it's a good upgrade in January, but long term he might not be the starter in that position, I'm all for it if he's coming in to be that roster player, which is what I was hoping they were doing with Dorgu last January. I was hoping that Dorgu was that kind of purchase where it's like, well, it's a good price, it's a young player. He might not be our long-term starter, but he'd be perfect on the roster or on the bench as our backup left wing back. As long as that's what's happening, I'm okay with it. Andy, what are your thoughts, man? I know you've already looked into Ederson. You made a video a little bit talking about him. What do you got?
I'm sorry. It's like 13 minutes into the episode. I'm gonna have to disagree with one of you guys because I actually think if we get Ederson, this guy is a starter in Bruno's role. Not right now because he will most likely dovetail with Casemiro in games. But moving forward, when I see him, I know I get labeled a stats merchant a lot, so I'll give you guys something with the eye test. This guy is a baller, man. When you watch him play, his body is built for the Premier League. The way he moves, the way he can like shove people off the ball. He, for me, is Baleba in 5 years because he's already 26, right? Baleba, when he improves his game even more in terms of the techers, in terms of the shooting, he gets to Ederson's level. And for me, like Ederson can win a tackle for us deep and then, play 1-2s, progress forward with the ball himself, dribble forward and score a goal from the edge of the box. This is somebody that would be a big upgrade on Bruno in that position because that's exactly what Amorim wants. Like we've talked about this before on all our channels where the only progressive carrier we have in our team, essentially the person that carries forward with the ball, is Cunha. And if we get Ederson, we're adding a second player in our midfield that can do that. Whereas I don't see a lot of our other options in midfield right now when we're going for Wharton and Anderson. Those guys aren't really progressive carriers. They're more progressive passers, right? Their style of play. And I also think, what's it called? Baleba is probably the only one that's really the progressive carrier, but he's still 21, right? And we've seen how inconsistent he can be. So for 35 to 40 million, I think if our goal really is let's go get Project 2028, then I think Ederson is a guy that helps us expedite that timeline. And I don't think he will just be a squad player. But Semeex, I see your point in terms of is he defensively good enough and all that. I just think in that left role, that left center midfield role, Bruno, he wants someone in Bruno's position to be box to box, and I think Ederson could fit that very well.
So just a follow-up question, Andy. What do you think is a good amount of successful dribbles per 90 for someone to be called a good progressive carrier?
I know already what you're looking at because you looked at Elliot Anderson's numbers, right? Because I've seen it as well.
I looked at. I know that Elliot Anderson actually has more progressive carries per game than Ederson does. Is Ederson a good dribbler? Yes, because his successful dribble rate is higher than 55%. He's at 66%. So more than half the times when he tries to carry the ball, it's successful. But I also know that he only does that 0.27 times per 90, literally less than half per game. So every 4 games, he's going to give you one successful carry. That's not enough for me, right? Like Baleba's numbers from last year smoke that, right? But
well, also, but that's the point, right, Semeex?
Then again, yeah, and then again, I will say that might be the instruction he's getting from his manager, right? Where he's not allowed to carry it. And maybe the instruction he would get from Ruben Amorim is, hey, man, like I need you to explode forward every chance you get. And that might change that number. You don't know what's happening in the locker room and what the instruction is. So I understand where you're coming from. But as you said, like this is more of an eye test thing. And I haven't watched Atalanta enough to claim to know that Ederson can do the job or can't do the job, whether like he can be told like, hey, bud, every time you get a chance to carry, I want you to carry. So I don't know. Like what I'm really asking you, Andy, is have you watched at least a half a dozen games of Ederson playing to where you can like put your stamp on it and say, hey, I really think this guy can do the job?
No, but I don't think any one of us is an Atlanta fan here that is
that's fair.
Is
that's
sitting
fair.
there watching every game, right? And we literally just got linked to Ederson, right? And listen, I think even people that have watched half a dozen of Elliot Anderson's games, for example, can't tell me that he's going to come into United and do the exact same thing because this is a struggling Forest team that funnels the ball entirely through Anderson. So if you look at his stats and you're saying this is the second coming of Zidane, like I'm not going to believe you, right? Because a lot can change. Like styles make fights, and one player and one team looks better. If you look at Casemiro and Bruno's stats, for example, they look like the best midfielders in Europe right now. But obviously we know from watching them week in, week out that they're not. So I think even if you look at Ederson's stats from last season, like Atalanta is not doing too hot right now. But if you look at his stats last season, his successful take-ons almost triple from the numbers that you quoted, right? So it's not that he gives you a successful dribble every 4 games. It's actually 1.3 games or something like that. So I just, based on the stuff that I've seen, I think he could be a good addition to this team. And listen, Anthony Elanga went for 55 million to Newcastle after one good season at Forest, right? So the prices that Premier League clubs are paying for like starting quality is so high right now that this for me is a very good player to come into the team and play that 8 role. And guys, I think, yeah.
I would say that this is the exact kind of conversations happen in scouting meetings.
Yeah.
This is the exact kind of like somebody might disagree and they might say like, here's why I disagree. And then somebody else, you know, might want the player and that's how they're going. So we're going to throw it to the third scout here. And James, where do you stand on this? Like, again, though, I do want to point out, I'm not saying I wouldn't get Ederson. I just want him to be a roster player. Andy's saying that he thinks that Ederson could be a starter for us even in the future. James.
Yeah, well, I look at it this way. I watched Ederson a while back for a bit. When we were first linked to him a couple seasons ago, I ended up watching quite a bit at that time because I really wanted to know what he was about. And there was a point where it looked like he might be a player we really did move for at that time. And what I can say that I definitely agree on is he is a he's a very physical player. You can see that even in Serie A. He has the physicality to deal with it. Sometimes you worry about that, but he has it. He's strong, he's fast, he's quick, he bounces off players really well. He's, he uses his body intelligently. He gets around the pitch really, really well. I think in terms of what he brings with the ball, it's debatable sometimes. But I will say this, the current dynamic we have in our midfield is hard to think with when you're talking about new players coming in, because they're so slow by comparison to what Amorim would want and to what you get at other clubs. Like, the dynamics could change so much. Like, Ederson doesn't look like a 6. He's probably not a 6. But at the same time, if you have Ederson and another 8, and they're both so energetic and physical, maybe you don't really need a 6, quote unquote, a 6 in the same way that we need now, because you have to have Casemiro sitting in front of the back line, because, Bruno's not going to be in these same spots as somebody else, and Casemiro's not mobile enough either. The dynamics could change a lot there. What Ederson does bring, I think he's a really, really similar player to what Amorim had in Morita at Sporting, which is he is a very all-around player who's going to chip in with goals, who's going to chip in with assists, who's going to attack the box at the right time, who's intelligent, and who is going to eat ground and work hard. Beyond that, I think it's one of those ones where we just have to see how he transitions into the league. I think he has the skill, the talent, the physicality. Could he be the starting level guy? Maybe. Maybe not. And it'll really be a test of what happens there. But at 35 million, I would also say, if he isn't, it doesn't matter. We need those players anyway. If he is, great. If he's not, doesn't matter. We need 3 or 4 midfielders over the next year or two anyway, period. We have to have it. So he's not going to, and I don't think he would stop you getting someone like Elliot Anderson into the team, or Baleba into the team, or Wharton into the team. I think once we upgrade to younger players who are more physical, who cover more ground, so many more dynamics will work with these players, and then we won't have to be so fixated on
Can I just
work.
add there, James? Because one thing I am worried about is a lot of people getting carried away with, let's get all 3 of them. Let's get Baleba, Anderson, Wharton. And then we have like 3 midfielders that are all 21. You know what I mean? So I do like the fact that we're mixing it up. Yeah, he brings experience. He brings international experience as well. He's in the Brazil squad. And the Brazilian players rate him also. And so for me, if you get someone like Ederson, right, to play that left role, like I said, I think Elliot Anderson thrives even more in that right role. For me, as a pairing, they work very well. Whereas I am worried if we get someone like Ederson and get someone like Wharton next to him, because, Wharton's not giving you that much in terms of defensive output or physicality. Because I do agree with Semeex's original point, which is Ederson is not this defensive monster that can also give you some attacking. He's very much box to box, and probably more in the attacking box than the defensive box.
Yep. Well, you said Brazilian, which leads us into the next name, which is another interesting one. Unfortunately, one that it sounds like in recent times we're not going to be moving forward for one reason or another, and that's Joao Gomez. And Joao Gomez is, if Ederson is your box-to-box, slightly more attacking 8, you would say Joao Gomez is almost the exact foil to that of a kind of box-to-box, but a bit more defensive 8/6. So they're kind of at opposite ends of that.
Get both of them.
They would work great together. They'd be a wonderful pairing, but they're also 2 players, like we've been discussing, I think you could pair with almost anybody and it would work out really well. United, like Ederson, have been following him for years. I mean, they watched him back in Brazil before he came to the Premier League. They've been checking it out. Obviously, one of the things that brought this to the forefront of United looking into it ahead of January is that Wolves are sitting on 2 points. They're going to be relegated almost certainly at this point in time. They're on course for the worst seasons ever. He signed a new contract a little bit ago, but it's theorized or speculated, similar to Cunha, that there's probably a relegation clause in there, that if they go down, they're going to end up having to sell him for virtually nothing. It happens a lot. And so they might need to cash in January. And that is a situation that United have looked into. But it sounds like perhaps the conditions of the deal are not right, because there's been a bit of cold water poured on it. we can't eliminate it completely, because if Wolves are still sitting in 2 points, maybe a price where they're thinking we're not going to sell, we're going to hold out, we're going to climb out of the relegation zone, 70 million or nothing. Maybe that does drop to them being a bit more pragmatic and that price coming down in January and the situation changes. But for now, we don't know. What do you think, Semeex, about Joao Gomez? What will he bring to the table?
I really like Joao Gomes. I think he's got the right mentality for me. He's somebody who could come right in and just battle in the midfield. I think he definitely benches both Casemiro and Ugarte right off the bat. You know what I mean? It'll take 1 or 2 training sessions, and Ruben Amorim would be a fool to not put that warrior in. That's a guy we don't have a young warrior. Casemiro used to be a warrior. Now he's just a little bit of an older statesman, if you will. And Joao Gomes would be that young warrior we want to have, just to come in and break up plays and just destroy the other team's plays. So I like it. I like the purchase. But again, to me, he definitely represents a step in the right direction, but maybe not the, fantasy midfielder I would love to have, right? Like last year, Baleba was like, I was dreaming. You know what I mean? That's what I want. I wanted that destroyer that could also carry the ball like Baleba did. But Joao Gomes, not bad, man. Not bad at carrying the ball. Not bad at just being secure with the ball. So I would really like that purchase. And then one thing I can say about Joao Gomes that I know, just because I watch the Premier League a lot more than I watch Atalanta or Serie A, is that his mentality seems to be in the right place for me. I never see him just put his head down and quit on a game. No matter how bad it's going for Wolves, you just keep seeing him battling, keep trying. No matter if they're down by 2 goals with 5 minutes left, he's still in the game. And I like that. Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, because I feel we discussed Joao Gomez, I think, in the very first episode we did, if I remember correctly, and I had brought up the fact that his wage might be a concern for us, right? Because at Wolves, he's already making £130,000 a week. So if we're gonna get someone like Joao Gomez, and I don't know, Semeex, if you feel in the long term he is somebody who's a clear cut starter over the other players we might be in for. But if that's not the case, then we're essentially giving somebody Ahmad level money, because Ahmad's making 150K with bonuses for somebody that may not start. And then we're getting into maybe issues of the past with like a Mason Mount making £250,000 and he's not a clear-cut starter, right? So that would be one concern. And the other concern is, if I look at his stats, right, this is, when I look at Elliot Anderson's stats, what did I say in the previous segment? I said his stats look very good because he's playing for a struggling team and the game goes really through him, right? Whereas Joao Gomez is doing almost the same thing, playing for a struggling team, but his stats don't look that good. So I'm wondering, is there somebody that we could be looking at that's better? Because we are paying about 45 million, right, James? Is that the right price that's been quoted for him?
Yeah, I mean, well, the price is probably a lot higher, and that's why we wouldn't do it. I think if they ended up accepting somewhere around 40 million euros, we would do it, but it's higher than that even. Yeah.
So with that price and £150,000 a week, it does kind of look like an expensive signing in a way. But I know Semeex has seen a lot more of him because you're working on a video on him as well, right? So I'll defer to your judgment on Joao Gomez, but I just think there are some concerns around like the auxiliary concerns.
Here's my favorite thing about having a Joao Gomes on the team. In Amorim's system, when it's actually running the way it's supposed to be running. So I'm thinking like next season when we have more midfielders in and maybe another wing back and a center back that could distribute. I'm seeing a system or a playing style that's going to require a lot of substitutions in the 60th minute, 55th minute, because everybody's going to be running all the time. The biggest problem we've had this season is we have leads in the first half and then we give it up in the second half. Joao Gomes would be the perfect person to put in the 55th minute or 60th minute to replace whoever the actual starting center midfielder is going to be that we're going to purchase next summer. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, even if it is Elliot Anderson, 60th minute, we got the lead 1-0, 2-0. You take Elliot Anderson, maybe he's starting to, breathe heavy because he's tired. You take him out, you put Joao Gomez in, you feel secure, you feel safe. And that's a lot more than I can say for the way the roster is built right now. And that's why. But guys, Yeah, like James said, like Andy's saying, if you're going to pay that high in wages and the transfer fee is going to be high and you're thinking of him as somebody who's going to come in and clean up after 55 minutes, maybe that's not the kind of price you pay for that player. I don't know.
Yeah, makes sense. And obviously that kind of ties into the overall strategy and kind of the idea of what's been said about how United are approaching the January window, which is we don't want to overpay for players. I mean, the strategy since INEOS have come in has been kind of similar to that from the start, right? We know that Omar Barada from his time at City brings a big philosophy of you pay what you value the player at or you don't buy them. And it doesn't really matter what you need. It doesn't really matter what you want. You don't compromise on those kinds of principles. So with Joao Gomez, it sounds like that's kind of an example of that, where they might look at him and say, he does have potential. He's still young, but 60, 70 million, we're not paying that. Same as we weren't going to pay 80, 90 million for Baleba or 100 million because we still see him as a 70 player. It's like, doesn't mean we don't like him. Doesn't mean we didn't need it. We're just not compromising.
Or even Ederson last summer, right? Even Ederson last summer, they walked away for 70 million.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So that's their approach. That's their philosophy. That's where they're at. But I think it needs to be made really clear. They are not saying for this January, we're not buying someone. We're not doing business. They were willing to do business at big prices for guys like Anderson, Wharton, etc. if they were available. They would have paid 100 in January if they would sell for 100 in January. They won't. They'll sell for 100 in summer, and they'll probably pay that in summer for one of those guys. So it's not like nothing's could happen in January, but again, it's got to be, is there an opportunity to get somebody who fits the long-term vision at a price we value that does make sense to do now?
James, I have a very interesting question on this topic, because we have talked about this on the podcast before, and you said even on our channel when you and I did the collaboration, we talked about INEOS has a strategy of 15 players they want to buy over the next 3 to 5 years, right? And we see the player not because we need a midfielder right now, but we see a player that's available, we need to go get him because he fits our strategy. Isn't Semenyo the definition of that player?
That's what I think. Yes, that's what I was saying earlier. I think that's why I still hold out a little hope that they'll do it, because we do need him. Maybe not as much today as we will in a year. We will need him, and he does fit the team, and they're still keeping an eye on him. So, and the price is good. That's the difference here. Like we've discussed, Joao Gomez. Okay, maybe the price isn't good. We've discussed Ederson. Maybe he's not at the top of our list, and we know we're going to get a player. If we don't move for Ederson, we know we're going to go for the guy we would get instead of Ederson in summer, and we know we'll obtain him, so we don't want to skip and spend early. Maybe. But Semenyo, good price, available, player we like. I think they'll try. That's why I still think that way, because it fits every box of their philosophy. But
Semeex, I have a question for you with Semenyo. Since we're excited about him on the podcast, I can see how all three of us reacted. But Semenyo, do you think this is a player that could be the difference between Europe and not Europe, based on where the squad is right now?
Yes, but that's so hard to answer because I'm also in desperate need of a center midfielder. So do I think, if you ask me the same question about Ederson, I would answer it the same way, right? I would go, yes, but I don't know, because if our left side doesn't start getting better, I don't know if that's good enough for us to have a decent center part of the pitch and a decent right side, but maybe a weak left side. I don't know if that's good enough to get into Europe. And the same answer goes for, if we get Semenyo, that fixes our left side a little bit more, but centrally we might still have older legs, and I don't know how we're going to cope with the last 20, 25 minutes of games. So it's so hard to answer,
but
Andy,
it
but
sounds
the
like
answer
it
is
does
yes.
fix one of the problems.
Definitely, yes. So so to answer your question, there's two problems. It fixes one of them, so it makes us a lot more likely to get into Europe. That's for sure.
Right. So that there's your answer, folks. Jason Wilcox, get on the phones, man. Make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the one thing I want to say about INEOS, I'd like this discussion actually maybe switch to INEOS a little bit, because really, like, it comes down to like what's your aspirations for the end of the season? How realistic is it to tell the manager you want to get into Europe, but then you don't end up doing these things in January? Like, some of the stories I'm hearing from Rob Dawson or other journalists saying that United's only going to do something in January if there's a good deal, or if people leave, if we make sales, then we'll purchase, or if people leave on loan, then we'll try to get people on loan. That worries me, guys. But then again, I always have to think to myself, hey, this is a typical Manchester United story right before any transfer window. And that calms me down, right? That calms me down. But then you see the other content creators that you guys always name or talk negative about, they jump on that, right? Because that negativity fuels views. I'm not trying to do that right now. I just want to hear what you got. Like, are you as calm as I am when you think to yourself, no, man, this is just probably the same media thing that happens before every transfer window? Or are you guys worried that INEOS might be thinking about budgets and bottom lines, and we're not going to do much in January? James, I think this one, probably you're the perfect person to answer. So let's go to Andy first, and then we'll go to you.
Yeah. I think this is an interesting question, right? I get the feeling that INEOS is pretty good at reading the fan base. Relative to where we were before, right? I'm not going to say objectively, but subjectively, they are better. And I think we're more likely to do something big on like the first 3 days of the summer, of the January window, than we are to like go drag it out and just, give us try to blue ball us basically, right? So I think it's very likely that we see something big or we don't see something. So in my opinion, if nothing happens in the first like 5-10 days, we're not going to get any transfers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fairly interesting assessment. Here's the way that I look at it, right? Just logically, I don't think it takes much insight to know this much. At the end of the window, United were prepared to pay $70 million for Baleba. They sold Alejandro Garnacho for $40 million in profit at the end of the window. The only person they brought in was Senna Lamens for what, £20 million, £17 million, something very low. The money is there. It's not a question. We don't even have to discuss it. The money is there. That's not a problem. The money is available. It's funny about United, if you think about like all those typical briefings and things like that. If United brief and you start hearing like cash is tight, we're going to spend $200 million. That's what happens every single summer, right?
Also, James, with the amortization, right, on Garnacho was pure profit.
Yep.
And that's 40 million pure profit. So you can get a lot more in terms of amortization for a 5-year contract.
There's and again with PSR, this is it. It's over.
Yeah.
This is the last season of PSR.
Yeah, squad cost ratio.
Next season, United have virtually, I won't say unlimited funds, but they do. It's practically unlimited because United have actually dealt with this really well. Their squad cost ratio with some of the departures next season is going to come down to like 50%. They're going to end up being able to spend $300-400 million without regulatory concerns. So factually, they've done a lot to prepare for that. We can spend. We're probably going to spend. I think they will do something. Everything that I've heard speaks to the fact or the idea that they will do something. But I do got to say, it's still in line. I think the only holdback is it's still in line with the idea they're not going to make expensive signings just because, they still have to fit the long-term plan. And I think that's smart because we've ended up making so many mistakes on that where we think so bad we need a signing, we end up compromising on who, and it bites us. And then we're stuck with them for 5 years. We did that so many times over the last few years that put us in that financial hole. We don't want to waste money either. But I do think they should look at and see this opportunity as well and say, yeah, look, Champions League, it's within grasp. We could do it. We could get Champions League. All we got to do is add one player and we have that opportunity.
James, you bring up a great point. Yeah, 2 players. You bring up a great point about squad cost ratio because like Rishi and I did the math on it, and we can spend upwards of 300 million even without getting rid of Rashford's contract and Onana's contract, because they're likely to go back on loan again because Barcelona is going to squeeze us, right?
Yep.
And if you add on to the fact that if we get Champions League, we're going to get Champions League TV money, we're going to get Champions League tickets revenue, right? maybe other endorsements related to that. So the squad cost ratio isn't going down just because of our wages going off the books, like Casemiro, maybe Bruno. It's also because we're going to get more revenue next year if we do get into any European competition. So, Semeex, I want to hear from you. You mentioned there are 2 problems in our squad. What would be the big positions you would like to fix, right? Not specifically which players you would go for, and tell me how many players you want in each position. Just like a wish list. I don't want to get into realism. Let's take realism away from this conversation for a second.
Well, if we're taking realism away, then obviously I want 2 left wing backs that you said don't name players, but just to like kind of
you can name our players. You can name our oh, you mean to say like your favorite choice, like who you would bring in?
Yeah, of course.
Please go for it.
I would want PSG's Mendes for the left wing back role, someone in that ilk. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 center midfielders are the 2 priority positions, left wing back, center midfielder. But then right away, I would start looking at center backs, which James has touched on his channel a lot too, because our center backs aren't progressing the ball as much as they should in this system. And our center backs have to, I made a tactical breakdown video and I posted it yesterday. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see it, but I showed at the end of that video examples of our center backs actually carrying the ball forward. Luke Shaw carrying the ball forward, Mazraoui carrying the ball forward in that last game. That was one of the biggest highlights for me in that game that not a lot of people talked about. And it's very necessary. And it's something we did so well in preseason that just kind of disappeared when the season started. And we need center backs who are going to progress the ball forward and pass the ball forward, breaking lines with their passes and things of that nature. That's why I'm so looking forward to Licha being healthy and joining the team again, because he's really good at that. But yeah, the 2 main positions for me are center midfielder and left wing back, and I'd want 2 left wing backs and 4 center midfielders in the long run.
How many center backs? Just before we go to James, how many center backs?
We need another 3.
Okay.
We need. I'm thinking that Harry Maguire leaves after this season, by the way. So, and that's why I said 4 center midfielders, because I'm thinking 2 of the ones we currently have are going to leave. So I need to replace those 2 and get another 2.
Right. Now, James, what is realistic from what Semeex has actually said? Because he said 3 plus 4 plus 2. If I'm doing my math correctly, that's 9 players.
That's thinking that's over a couple of years, right?
Yeah, I'm not.
No. I'm genuinely. So I'm not trying to call Semeex out here. My point is, he made a wish list because vision shouldn't be limited by reality, right? So you should have in your head, this is what fixes our team. This is what expedites. Because INEOS came out and said Project 2028, not the 3 of us.
Yep.
Right. So if we're gonna get
so
there,
got a few years to get that. Yeah.
Surely, what Semeex is saying is what we need to do. If not next year in the summer, then at least in January, the next January, right? So tell me what's realistic in like the next 2 windows, I guess, after this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not that far off of probability in terms of what can be done. Looking at it, I think we're very likely to get at least 1 more wingback type player. Very likely to get at least 1 more forward. I think 1 to 2 center backs will certainly happen over the next few windows as well. And then I do think we'll get 2, maybe 3 midfielders between January and this summer because of all the departures that are possible. I mean, Casemiro's going to go almost certainly. Ugarte very likely to go at this point in time. The 2-year rule kicks in for a lot of these guys. They'll move him on. They'll get somebody else in that case. I guess technically Orozco could fit into one of those 4, depending on how good he is when he shows up. The scouting reports on him within are really high. We'll see. It's an unknown, right?
He's really young. Yeah. I don't want to get excited because people are saying Sekou Kone, Jim Thwaites, and all these guys. If we're lucky to have one of those come into the first team.
We'll be lucky. But, they could sign 2 more seniors between January and summer. Maybe he counts as a 3rd. We'll see. And then they'll move for another, depending on that later on. I think it's possible over the next 3-4 windows to get all that done. I think it's, in fact, I would say it's very likely all that gets done over the next at least by the following summer, that all of that happens. I think it's almost guaranteed that all that happens, because it's definitely what they're looking at. The midfield, I mean, look at what they did this summer. We need to fix the forward line. All right, there's 3 forwards, 200 million, it's done. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing in the midfield. The following summer, we'll probably do it in the defense between January and summer and say 2-3 more center backs and a couple wing backs.
I think the interesting thing for me is something that Semeex said. I feel like they're trying to get Casemiro and Maguire to stay on reduced contracts, right? That would be their preference because they don't want all that experience just to leave the team. I think Maguire is much more likely to say, I will take a reduced contract and stay because he wants the prestige of, United and all that.
He's an England guy,
So
yeah.
I actually think Maguire might be the one that stays out of those two. And so that bodes well for us saying, okay, let's prioritize the midfield this year and maybe just get one center back. Because, guys, I'm looking at De Ligt's progressive passing numbers, and he's in the 17th percentile for Premier League center backs. He's so bad at progressive passing, guys. I know Semeex, you were talking about the center backs in that game. I watched every second of the first half without increasing the speed or anything back again. And De Ligt was actually scared to pass it forward. Every time he got the ball, there were so many opportunities for him to play it straight through the lines. There was a nice passing angle to Mbeumo. He ignored it. There was a nice passing angle to Mount. He ignored it. He would always go left or right, and that's what's forcing all of our progression down the wings. If we want to move it through the middle, our priority needs to be center back to replace De Ligt because he can't be a starter for us.
Yeah, it was the same against Everton. It kicked off a lot of the problems against Everton was the back passes to Lenioro going 5 yards sideways under pressure, like instead of going through the lines. Big problem that was for sure.
In the post-match interview, actually, Ruben Amorim brought it up in a way, and he said Mateus, or he calls him Mata. Mata had the most open space. He can see the field better. We need to get him the ball to basically make these decisions. But he didn't go into detail, but I'm sure he would have said the same thing you just said, Andy, which is he's not taking advantage of that time and space that he has to pick out the right pass, which is exactly what James has said on the United Muppetiers channel too, is that center backs are more involved in build-up in this system than in any other system. So yeah, man, we're gonna need, even if we sign Harry Maguire to an extension or sorry, not an extension, but a new contract. Maybe it's just a 1-year contract. Maybe we're doing the same thing that Chelsea used to do with their aging players, where hey, we'll give you 1-year contracts, and that's totally fine. That's great. I'm all for that. If we can get Casemiro on a 1-year contract, I take it right now. Why not, right? But that doesn't mean you stop building and you stop going for other players we need.
Also, can I just say, every team I've watched this season that wants to press us, bar maybe Liverpool and maybe Brighton as well, every other team that plays either low block or mid block has preferred to press our left and right center backs. They give our central center back all the time in the world. And so it's criminal if you actually think about how poor De Ligt is in terms of passing the ball forward. And they've said this about him at Bayern. They've said it about him at Juventus. This is what the club has criticized him for. The coaches have criticized him for, that he doesn't take the risk on the ball. It's like he's scared to lose the ball. And you saw Casemiro in the first half against Crystal Palace. He kept losing the ball like it was his task, right? He kept giving the ball away, but he was trying, right? I think Amorim likes the fact that he was trying to make the first time pass, and that's what we need De Ligt to do. I don't think this is a case of he can't do it. There's a mental block here that he needs to improve on. So even without us signing players, I think De Ligt could be much better if he just passed it forward a bit more.
Yep. I got one more question for you guys on the transfer front before we move on to probably West Ham to discuss this game that's happening sooner because we have a short turnaround finally, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Given everything we've discussed, what is for you the most important thing that we could do in January to help us get into Champions League? Is it a player like Semenyo because he's just such a great option and the goals will help, even if you think the midfield is worse? Semenyo's so good that he would help us more than any midfielder we could get in January? Or is it like we've got to get a midfielder? Is it a wingback? What is your number one if we could get one thing, it's that, and who's the player? Andy, why don't you answer that first?
I was hoping you'd go to Semeex first, so I get a bit more time to think. But
On the spot, let's
here,
go.
Semeex gets that benefit. I got you, bro. But yeah, so for me, it's such a hard question to answer because obviously we have more than one problem. I am really worried about Casemiro. We saw in that Palace game more than any other game how bad he can be at times because this season he's been a lot of his issues have been hidden away. Let's put it that way. He's given us let's say 6 out of 12 good games so far, and that's very good at his age considering he was giving us like 2 out of 12 last year. So it's been very good, but when he looks bad, he just stinks up the place. And that's no disrespect to him. It just looks very bad, right? And Bruno's better than Casemiro right now. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. So you said one problem to fix. I would say we desperately need somebody to come in that can dovetail with Casemiro. That when we have 2 games a week, because I don't know, is he gonna have the legs to play tomorrow, guys, against West Ham? Because it's 2 games. He played 90 minutes against Palace.
To play on Sunday.
Yeah, no, and he played 90 minutes even though he didn't, right? And so I just look at it and say we need a second midfielder more than anything else. As much as I would like Semenyo, if you gave me a choice between him and Ederson or him and Joao Gomez or any of the targets that we're linked to, I would go for the midfielder.
For me, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. There's just perspectives because, Andy, everything you said is 100% on point. I couldn't argue with a word you just said. My issue is that I look at sports in more of an attacking perspective. Like, that's just me from my first tactical videos. It's all about how we build up, how we attack, until people started asking me, like, how do we press? How do we defend? And then I started making those videos too. So when I look at it as an attacking perspective and how do I move the opposing defense around, I need the left side to be just as dangerous as the right side so that it stretches the opposition team. Look, it's just my personality. I'd much rather win a game 6-5 than win a game 1-0. It's just me. You get what I mean? So I would like to see Semenyo come in because that would make it so. Look, our right side has Ahmad and Mbeumo. If both of them are having an okay game, as long as it's not a bad game, the opposing team is definitely worried about our right side. They don't even have to have amazing games for you can see it in games. They're double teamed every time that one of them touches the ball out there.
They're occupying space and occupying time from the defenders.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And it spreads the back line. The problem is the spread isn't that big because everybody who's supposed to be defending on our left side just compresses into our right side because they're not worried over there. What's going to happen over there? No big deal. And it puts a lot of pressure on Cunha, which is what people aren't talking about enough. Cunha, people are talking about he's taking bad shots, he's making these mistakes, and I understand that because he is. But the problem is I've said this before, and some people have said that I'm overstating it, but I feel like if Cunha doesn't have a great game, whereas Mbeumo and Alma can have okay games, and they're still dangerous, Cunha has to have a great game to be dangerous because he's not getting much help from his wingback that's coming in. And look, maybe I am overstating it, but there's some form of truth in that statement. And if we bring in another person to play alongside Cunha out there, out wide, it's going to make opposing teams' defenses open up bigger gaps for us, for Bruno to penetrate through, for Šeško to do something with, for the late runs by Casemiro coming forward. There will be more holes. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different answer than Andy and say, I think if we could spread the field a little bit more out wide. But just like Andy said, I still worry about the aging legs, and I still worry about what's going to happen the last 30 minutes of games. I don't know. I don't know, James.
I'm more worried about Ugarte. I'm more worried about Ugarte coming on than Casemiro going off, by the way. Just want to say that. But anyways,
yeah.
James.
I'm caught in the middle. I've been caught in the middle. There was a long time during the season I said I think a left wing back would make more difference than anything else because I'm looking at the spaces Patrick Dorgu often receives the ball when he's on the pitch, often gets, and looking at if he had optimal output, it would be a game changer for this club. The amount of chances we would create, the amount of goals we could score, the amount we could progress up the pitch. And I kind of feel like, to a degree, if we had that progression via both sides to stretch it in the way that you're talking about, I think it would reduce the pressure on the midfield. Maybe that means it could work for Casemiro. Maybe that means it could work for anybody else. Some of these players who really struggle under pressure, like Ugarte, or maybe Mainu's legs aren't as big a problem in there if we can progress down both sides for this season. The long term, we know what we need to do. I go back and forth. One of the things I think it's so hard because, like, against Palace, Casemiro was so bad. But at the same time, one of the reasons we won was Dallow's aggression in that game. He was really good in that game. It was one of his only good games of the season. Getting up the pitch, he won both fouls.
He wasn't
both
just good.
set
He was
pieces.
Excellent.
He was
excellent
it was
in
good.
that game.
He was really
Time
good.
out. I have to stop you guys.
He
I have to
was
stop
very
you guys.
good. Semeex,
He was
come
good.
on,
I
man.
have to
There's
stop.
no
I
bias
have to
here. He
stop
was
you
good
guys.
in that
Time
game.
out. Hold on. I'm okay with the word good, but once you step into the excellent phase, I'm going, wait,
I'm
guys.
talking relative to the team. Listen, nobody's calling him
He's
the next
still-
Nuno Mensch.
He was one of our
he's-
better players. Maybe top two with Shaw in that game, honestly.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Sure, but I'm pretty sure almost all his crosses were horrendous. And you know what he was good at? He decided to carry the ball, and he didn't make any funny dribbles where, like, he got his feet crossed, which
Look
is
at
what
that.
happened.
A compliment
like 3 games ago.
for Dallo from Semeex.
He's
Is
staying
that a
on
rare
the pitch,
sighting?
though.
No,
That's
hold on.
what we
This
need,
is-
right? We've talked about this balance of these wing backs. Like, he did his job. And you can
Correct.
see that just doing the job is even enough. But
Correct.
I don't
But that's
know.
what I mean. Our standards, we got to keep our standards high, guys. Let's not call excellence, like, let's not say words like excellent when
Bro,
it's
we
like, hey,
finished
he
15th.
did his job.
We finished
Right?
15th last year,
I
and
mean,
we were
you could
horrible.
argue that nobody was excellent to a degree, but yeah, I mean, look, relative
he was
to-
very
to-
good. He was very good
Yeah.
for me, and in that game, he was our top 3 players for sure. And I
Sure.
feel like a lot of people were
I agree
very
with
harsh on Xerxes. Xerxes in the first half did everything he was asked to do as well. So for me, Xerxes, Dallo, and Luke Shaw had very good games, in against Palace. And that, I guess I was trying to get to this eventually, but James brought it up early because I wanted to ask you, like, how do you think Dallo's game went? I guess you've already answered it. I think my point is what James mentions is very interesting with Dorgu, because you look at his stats. He's in the 95th percentile for progressive carries in the Premier League, 97th percentile for touches in the attacking penalty box, 91st percentile for progressive passes received, which means he's getting in all the right positions. He's making all the right runs. At some point, he had the most touches in the penalty box for us, this season. And the problem is up here, right? His decision making is horrendous. Like, he'll pass when he needs to cross. He'll cross it too far ahead, cross it too far back, cross it at the wrong time. So those are the issues. So for us to make an improvement on someone like a Dorgu, you have to get that elite technical, physical profile that you might only get from a Nuno Mendes alongside the decision making. Right? I'm struggling to see somebody who's physically ready for the Premier League that can do exactly what Dorgu does and make the good decisions. Because you see someone like Grimaldo at Bayer Leverkusen, right? He's a baller, like, creatively, putting in the crosses, he takes free kicks, everything. But he's built like a twig. I'm sorry. Like, he's going to get smashed in the Premier League, right? And it's going to be a little bit like Alex Telles. So, Semeex, who are you seeing, man, as the profile of left wing back? Tell me, other than Nuno Mendes. You can't say Nuno Mensch. Tell me another one.
I would take, what was his name? Balde from Barcelona? Is that his name? Am I saying it right?
Is he strong enough? You think he would survive in the Premier League?
I think that we're overestimating how strong you have to be out on that wing, as opposed to, like, I just need you to be technically fit, and, like, it's fine if you're not strong as long as you don't fall until you're actually fouled. So that, yeah, if you keep getting fouled because you're not strong enough to fight through the tackles, I'll take those I'll take those set pieces. I'm not that concerned about actual strength and height for those positions. I'm more concerned about, just like my manager said, I'm more concerned about getting a right-footed Ahmad. Do you get what I mean? Or a left-footed Ahmad like Balde is. That's what I'm. So it's not. I don't think it's as hard to find as you would think. I just don't watch enough football, or I'm actually really bad with names. Anybody who watches my channel knows I'm really bad with names. if I could just tell you something, like I like the guy who plays out there for Inter. I forgot his name.
DeMarco.
So
DeMarco.
Exactly. So there are options. There are options. And like I said, just think Ahmad, but on the left side. Ahmad's not a physical beast. Like Ahmad is not. If you can't, if you
for
saw
his
Ahmad
size,
playing,
he's surprisingly good in terms of
correct.
Yeah.
But that's because you watch him play week in and week out. You don't know what other Ahmads are out there in other teams you don't watch. That if you just saw photos of and just saw like one game of, you'd be like, oh, he's small.
Yeah. But you can also look at Grimaldo and say he's not strong enough, right? There are players that it's obvious with, but Balde, that's why I didn't dismiss Balde right away. That's why I asked you if you think he's strong enough, because I don't think it's a crazy shot. I think it's a good shot. But again, this guy's making like 300,000 pounds a week probably at Barcelona because they pay crazy wages. James, I think it makes sense to talk about the West Ham game a little bit, and I wanna present to the panel some stats, right? Because that's what I am, apparently, a stats merchant. The last 3 games that West Ham has done well in, right? Because obviously they lost 2-0 to Liverpool, which again, thank God they did that because Slot's going to stay in a job longer. But Bournemouth drew 2-2 against West Ham. And before that, West Ham beat Burnley 3-2, and they beat Newcastle 3-1, right? Both pretty good results. Against Newcastle, they had 37% possession, but they had 1.75 XG from 15 shots, and they kept Newcastle to just 0.5 XG, right? And they won that game. Again, big win for me. Against Burnley, 43% possession, created 3 XG, and won the game 3-2. Burnley only had 1 XG. And then against Bournemouth, it was kind of the opposite story where they still had 24% possession, but they conceded 4 XG, but only gave away 2 goals, right? So we're looking at a team. This is like a Nuno masterclass, if you will. He's gone to West Ham. He's made them a budget Forest because, let's be honest, the squad that he has at West Ham is not as good as the squad even right now at Forest. So you're looking at a team that is very good on the counterattack, very good at playing without the ball, and does have some pacey players, right? They've got Jared Bowen, Wilson. Like, they're not slow, right? This seems like, to me, a potential repeat of the Brentford game, where they want to sit deep, they want to soak pressure, they want to rely on set pieces, long throws, and beat us on the counterattack. And that is literally our kryptonite, as we've seen it already. Even Man City started playing counterattacking football against us just to beat us 3-0. So, gents, James, I'm going to throw it to you first, and then I want to hear from Semeex. What do you think is going to happen in this game?
I think, one, it makes a big difference that it's at home for us. I know it shouldn't, but it does. I know we just lost to Everton in this way, but still, for now, I'm holding Everton as an outlier, right? Because our home form this season has actually been excellent. It's been fantastic. One of the best in the league in that respect. And also, in speaking to the Brentford game, a couple of things there. As we know from the stats against Palace, our away form in London has been horrific. That game against Palace, the first win against anyone that wasn't Fulham in 23 attempts away at London, including Brentford. So, yeah, it's been rough out there. In fact, I think the last time we won in London that wasn't Fulham was Brentford in 2022. We also had a factor there where we spent the whole week planning with Ahmad out wide, and then he had a death in the family, was off on bereavement, changed the whole nature of how we approached that game. As we know, the difference between Ahmad out wide, Ahmad up front.
That's a great point.
The team sets up massive,
James, yeah.
right? And that really did hurt us because it was also one of Dallow's worst ever games in a United shirt, in my opinion. He was like lost, in a complete daze of where to be on the goals we conceded. It was also Altay Bayindir in net, doing absolutely nothing for us on both of the goals we conceded.
What do you mean? He was playing for Brentford, wasn't he?
Might as well, right? But, over the last month, while that's, West Ham, the difference as well, I think, between them and like a Brentford and a Forest, over the last month, West Ham have still conceded the 4th most chances in the Premier League. So even though they're a bit of a budget Brentford, they're really a budget Brentford, in that respect. They sit deep, but they don't defend well. They defend terribly. And United are actually the best defensive team in the league over the last month, which is crazy to say given our results haven't been that good the last 3 games. We've conceded the least number of chances. So there's things we're starting to sort out. I think it's a good game for us. I think it's fine. You know, we can dig into all the stats and all that. It really, with the United team, where I'm at with this game is like, all right, are they going to turn up or not? I actually have no other question. We turn up, we'll win. It's not even like all the stats, all the numbers, they point to United should win quite handily, to be quite honest, regardless of what West Ham have turned around. One of the worst defensive teams against one of the better attacking teams. At home, we should win. We turn up, we win. That's it. It's like, that's most of these games is like that. If we turn up, we'll win. That's how I feel about where we're at in the season from what I've seen so far.
Semeex?
Yeah, so we're going up against a Nuno Espirito Santo team. You know they're going to clog up the middle. You know there's going to be a lot of traffic. You know they're going to sit back a little bit. It's either going to be a mid block or a low block. And you know that, like Andy said earlier, that's kind of our kryptonite. How do we break down a low block? We talked a little bit about this on the last podcast, and I was bringing up crosses and how that's going to separate, and our crosses have to be of a higher quality. Yeah, we do need to see more crosses in this game. Number two, though, is something we didn't touch on the last podcast, is the triangles at the edges of the boxes. When we get the ball up front, which we're going to get the ball up front, and they're going to sit back, and we're going to have that ball in that let's say at the edges of the 18-yard box, if you will. There we form triangles, and this is something we were doing really well in preseason. Again, I always go back to this. And that interplay and passes has to lead to someone getting all the way to the end line and making a cutback cross, which we actually did pretty well the last month or two of last season also, not just preseason. I'm not seeing that enough in these games against teams that sit in a low block. We need to see a little bit more diagonal runs in that final third, and we need to see players getting all the way to the end line and making those cutback crosses on the floor, not just high crosses. And then we need Xerxes to show up again. We're going to need Xerxes to show up again in this game because his hold-up play is going to be very important for us against this team. That's what I see.
If I may add in terms of what I like about what both of you guys said, I sense a general positivity for this game. And the reason why I agree is because I think our biggest test in these 5 games was Palace. Right? Palace was the game where we're playing against a 3-back system, right? There's a lot of media noise. If we lose that game, you know the surface level analysis from Gary Neville's coming out saying, oh, he's not even the best 3 at the back system, right? Even though we know they probably on balance have a slightly better squad than us, at least the first 11, right? Even though we're paying way more wages and all that. So for me, I like the positivity, and I would also be positive about this game. And what James said specifically, they have some howlers in the team, man. Paqueta's not playing that game either. And I'm looking at their team right now, and it's they played a 3-4-3 against Bournemouth, for example. They're playing Wan-Bissaka at wingback, Juve at the other wingback. So they're a very defensive team, and they don't have a lot of pace trying to get in behind us. So I actually think if Xerxes, Mountain, and Mbumo, that front 3 chemistry improves, because this would be the 3rd game in a row they're playing together. Or actually, is Cunha's back, right?
Yeah.
He's back in training. I don't know if he'll start, but maybe he comes
off the bench. Yeah, maybe he comes off the bench because we know Mount only plays 60 minutes. So if Xerxes, Mountain, and Mbumo can keep their chemistry going, and I know Semeex, you analyzed this player on your channel. Hello, you said he could be on the Olympic diving team. And I think if Dalot has a good game carrying the ball forward, because he was doing very well with that, but he was kind of just missing that last 5% sometimes where, he took that dive like you pointed out, or he was getting into really good positions. I'm saying if he can capitalize on that even once, we know how good we are playing from ahead, right? So we get 1 goal from that left-hand side because Dalot gets to the byline and cuts it across, or Dalot puts in a good cross. Or does some nice interchange on that left-hand side to create something for us. I think we're very well suited to beat this team, because they're going to want to come onto us in terms of getting some points and trying to score a goal. And I think we're very well suited for that type of game plan, and it's at home.
Let me tell you, I think that this game is going to tell us a lot about Dalot's character, because I think he's gotten a lot of praise after the game from the manager. He's gotten a lot of praise in everybody who's talked about that game. And I think that now he needs to take that on, build his confidence with that, and have a better game. I don't want to see the same game. I want to see a little bit better game, especially in that final move, whether it's the cross, whether it's the deciding whether to dive or stay on his feet. I want to see a little bit better, and that's what I'm hoping to see. And if I see that, I'll make a whole video about how great Dalot is. Okay, that's my promise. But I really think that this is going to show us where his mentality really is. If he wavers, he goes back to Dalot from 3 weeks ago, then I'm gonna stop believing.
Right.
I think
Makes sense.
the big question in this game right now for me, from a personnel and all that standpoint, is Bruno carrying a knock, 2 doubts. Casemiro already couldn't keep up on Sunday and played 90. Bruno not keeping up with the game as much already. Add a knock onto that. I think we might have to see a different midfield setup this game, which could work better, could work worse, depending on the situation. We might be a little lucky. Paqueta is magically getting himself suspended again. There's no implication being made there. But yeah, that's going to be a really, really interesting thing to see. I'm very, very curious at the lineup tomorrow, because it's our first like short turnaround of the season. We have that knock, and we have the 90 minutes on. This could be an interesting lineup. It could be our first like big swing in the lineup that we've had in quite some time.
I think Menu could start. I said it in my live yesterday. I think Menu could start for Casemiro actually. And that might mean we see slightly more defensive fullbacks, like and Ahmad moving to the 10 or something like that. Because I just have this sense that they don't want to risk Casemiro getting injured, like injured, and he played a high intensity 90 minutes. Yeah,
we're gonna lose more players. We really can't take risks right now.
He said in the press conference today that he's got 2 knocks that he's worried about, but he won't name the names, and I guess Bruno's one of them from what James is saying. And it might be Bruno and Cass, right? Like, I don't know who the second person is, so it might be a whole new midfield. But guess what? Like, if there was a game where we can give some people time off and get somebody else, this would be the game for me, right? This would be the
ideal game. Yeah, for sure.
Wolves as well, maybe next week. You guys? But yeah.
You guys have predictions for this one? Yeah. Semeex, you go.
And I always say 3-1 because that's what I want to see. So I'm going to go with 3-1. And
United,
hopefully 3-0.
Yeah. United.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure. Nuno Masterclass incoming. Semeex's prediction right here. For me, I want to see a clean sheet, man. We can't go through a whole season with just a Sunderland clean sheet. And I'm looking at that team right now. I guess they're setting up in a 3-back as well. Bowen is the only guy I'm really worried about. So I want to see a 2-0.
Yeah, you said Sunderland, and I was already thinking 2-0. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to say the exact same thing, because that's what I was thinking with too. A simple 2-0 routine win. You know, we should be able to score goals on them, and then just settle in and defend properly.
So it's going to be a 4-3 then.
Right. It's going to be some chaos, right? That's what it's going to be.
Because United and regulation are 2 words that don't go together. Exactly. I want to just one more thing. I want to see Mbumo back on the score sheet or assist chart, because I know it's not that he's having a dry patch or something. It's just been 2 games, right? But I still want to see him, because he's the only like bright spark we can hang our hat on consistently. And I don't want it to be like, oh, he hasn't scored in 3 or assisted in 3. So I'd love to see him get it. And he's just such a lovable guy, man. You know, it's hard to hate on him.
So since we're going with what we want to see, I want to see 2 halves played with the exact same intensity, and like I just don't want a 1 half is good, 1 half is bad, because it's just been happening way too often. I want to see 2 halves that are consistently good. James, anything you want to see from either a player or the way we play?
I just want to see some control. It's kind of like the Sunderland one. You know, I didn't mind. You know, I know some people called that like a bad performance, the second half or something. I didn't think it was at all. I think it was a really, really controlled performance. Even like the last 30 minutes against Palace, maybe 20 minutes once we had the lead, was very controlled, even though we weren't attacking so much. And I think that's what you mean with the 2 halves things too. I want to see us attack. I don't mind sitting off a little once we have a lead, a couple goal lead, not 1, but 2 goal lead. I don't mind sitting off a little bit, as long as it's controlled, as long as it's calm, as long as it's composed, as long as we could still have the ball a little bit, move it around, keep it where we want it. I just want to see control of the game state, not us being at the mercy of what they're doing and desperate defending and things like that.
I'll add this this one thing. I feel like, and maybe you guys will agree with me. I actually think the intensity in both halves against Palace was good. The problem was we kept making dumb mistakes in the midfield, right? We kept playing bad passes, and what's happened in previous games is the midfield has been okay and the wingbacks let us down, right? And so there's always one area of the pitch that keeps letting us down. It's almost like you have 7 outfield players trying to give you 7 out of 10s, and then there's 3 players giving you 4 out of 10s. So the average for the team is just like 4.5 out of 10. You know what I mean? And that's what ends up happening. So I agree with Semeex a lot. I'm saying any player that's having a nightmare, just look at yourself in the mirror and say, I can't be the one that's bringing all of these guys down. Right? And I can't be the reason why we're having a bad game. And that could be Casemiro. It could be Dalot, like Semeex has said, rightly so, right? It could be Dorgu, whoever plays. We need consistency, because then you're not giving any room for Mbumo to have an off game, right? Because Mbumo's sitting there like, man, I'm playing through the skin of my teeth every game, and we can barely get wins here. And that's not good for morale. So I agree with what both of you guys said. I think I'm just looking forward for a calm game that's, we're decent in both halves. Let's start there. Just be decent in both halves.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to end it off. I think that's a good place to shut things down. And as we know, kind of starting with this podcast and discussion about transfers, every single one of these games is going to be consequential for the decisions that get made for January and for all our feelings about what we need in January. Every single game pushes us in one direction or another of thinking, God, we've got to do something, or whether we're going to be okay.
It's such a toxic relationship,
huge.
Isn't it?
It's huge.
It's such a toxic relationship. Like every day is different. It's like, oh, we're going to break up, or, we're going to get married, right? But yeah, one day, guys, we'll see the glory days. One day we'll be at the podium, all 3 of us holding the Premier League trophy, right? Come on, we're all getting replicas, aren't we? If we win the Premier League in our lifetimes, we're getting a replica.
Yeah.
It's gonna sit in the back over there. My cat's gonna be holding it. But
100%.
Let's go win against West Ham, guys.
For sure. Well, thank you all. Thank you for watching, everybody. Make sure to like, subscribe on all 3 of the channels. Myself, Footy with an Edge, Semeex Football. The links are going to be below. Check it all out. The podcast will be rotating on different channels every single week. Watch it every week. Join everybody's channels. Watch all the other videos. It's all great content. And hopefully United get a win. Thank you all. See you later, guys.